Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm your finance blogger, Unicorn Finance. Today, we're going to dive deep into the economic policies of the Trump administration and the Biden administration and their profound impact on the US economy. This will be a detailed analysis, and I hope you'll find valuable insights here. Ready? Let's get started. Part 1. Economic policies of the Trump administration. First, let's review the economic policies of the Trump administration. Tax cuts policy. One of the most notable actions taken by Trump after taking office was the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act (TCJA). This act reduced the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, and personal income tax rates were also lowered to varying degrees. The idea was that such tax cuts would stimulate business investment and drive economic growth. Indeed, in 2018, the US GDP growth rate reached 0.9%. However, we also need to consider other impacts of the tax cuts. The reduction in taxes led to a decrease in federal revenue and an increase in the fiscal deficit. In 2019, the U.S. federal fiscal deficit grew to $984 billion, 1.4 times that of 2016. In the long run, such a deficit could pose a threat to the fiscal health of the U.S. Deregulation. In terms of deregulation, the Trump administration rolled back or modified many of the environmental and financial regulations introduced during the Obama era. For example, the 2018 Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act eased regulations on smaller banks, reducing their compliance burden. While these measures promoted business development in the short term, they also raised concerns about environmental protection and financial system stability. Trade policy. The Trump administration's trade policy was particularly notable. By implementing an America First policy, Trump imposed tariffs on major trading partners such as China and the European Union. The tariffs on China were especially severe, covering over $500 billion worth of Chinese goods. While these tariff measures protected American steel and aluminum industries to some extent, they also led to higher prices for related products, negatively impacting consumers and some businesses reliant on imports. Part 2. Economic policies of the Biden administration. Now let's look at the economic policies of the Biden administration. Large-scale fiscal stimulus upon taking office. The Biden administration quickly introduced the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act (ARPA), which included direct payments of $1,400 to eligible individuals, extended unemployment benefits, and aid to small businesses and local governments. These measures greatly alleviated the economic impact of the pandemic and helped the U.S. economy recover swiftly. Data shows that in 2021, the U.S. GDP growth rate reached 5.7%, the highest in nearly 40 years. This indicates that Biden's large-scale fiscal stimulus policy played a crucial role in driving economic recovery. Infrastructure investment. The Biden administration also introduced the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, planning to invest heavily over the next 8 years in repairing roads, bridges, public transportation systems, and expanding broadband internet coverage. These investments are expected to create numerous jobs in the short term and enhance the U.S.'s long-term competitiveness. Social welfare and tax reform. In terms of tax policy, the Biden administration proposed increasing taxes on individuals earning over $400,000 annually and raising the corporate tax rate to 28%. Additionally, Biden has pushed for expanding social welfare programs, such as increasing child tax credits for low-income families and investing more in health care. These measures aim to reduce income inequality and improve the living standards of middle and low-income groups. According to the U.S. Tax Policy Center, these policies are expected to significantly reduce the number of people living in poverty, particularly children. Part 3. Economic growth comparison. Next, let's compare the economic growth performance of the two administrations. The Trump administration's tax cuts and deregulation boosted the economy in the short term, with GDP growth rates reaching to 0.9% and to 0.3% in 2018 and 2019, respectively. However, the 2020 pandemic caused the economy to contract, with GDP shrinking by 3.5%. The Biden administration played a crucial role in the post-pandemic economic recovery. In 2021, the U.S. GDP growth rate reached 5.7%. Although this growth was partly due to the rebound following the pandemic, Biden's fiscal stimulus policies undoubtedly accelerated the process. Part 4. Unemployment rate comparison. In terms of the unemployment rate, the Trump administration created numerous jobs during its term, bringing the unemployment rate down to a historic low of 3.5% in 2019. However, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 caused the unemployment rate to spike. The Biden administration, through implementing large-scale fiscal stimulus and a robust vaccination plan, rapidly reduced the unemployment rate in 2021. By the end of 2021, the unemployment rate had fallen to 4.2%. Additionally, the speed of the labor market recovery exceeded expectations, demonstrating the effectiveness of the economic policies. Part 5. Inflation and income inequality. However, we must also pay attention to some negative impacts. Inflation. During the Trump administration, the inflation rate averaged around 2%. Biden's fiscal stimulus policies, while promoting economic recovery, also brought inflationary pressures. In 2021, the U.S. inflation rate reached 7%, the highest in 40 years. This was primarily due to supply chain bottlenecks and surging demand. Income inequality. The Trump administration's tax cuts mainly benefited high-income groups, exacerbating income inequality. According to data from the Economic Policy Institute, the 2017 tax cuts increased the after-tax income of the top 1% by about 3.4%. The Biden administration aims to reduce income inequality by increasing taxes on the wealthy and strengthening social welfare programs. While these policies may improve the living standards of middle and low-income groups in the short term, their long-term effects remain to be seen. Part 6. International Economic Relations and Energy Policy. Finally, let's look at international economic relations and energy policy. Trade friction. Trump's tariff policies led to trade friction with multiple countries, especially the trade war with China. While these measures protected American manufacturing to some extent, they also increased costs for businesses and consumers, causing some supply chains to move out of the U.S. The Biden administration has adopted a more cooperative international trade policy, returning to multilateralism and restoring trade relations with allies. However, Biden has not completely removed tariffs on China, indicating a cautious approach to U.S.-China trade relations. Energy policy. In energy policy, the Trump administration supported traditional energy industries, easing regulations on the oil and gas sector to achieve energy independence. The Biden administration, on the other hand, places greater emphasis on renewable energy and addressing climate change, pushing the Clean Energy Plan with a goal of achieving carbon-free electricity by 2035. This policy shift has profound implications for the energy sector and the environment. Closing. All right, that concludes our in-depth analysis for today. To sum up, both the Trump and Biden administration's economic policies have their strengths and weaknesses, with varying short-term and long-term effects. Understanding the pros and cons of these policies can help us make better financial decisions in a complex economic environment. If you enjoyed today's content, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss any updates. I'm Unicorn Finance. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.